Michael Myers and Pinhead are both leaving Dead by Daylight in 2025. Gee, I do wonder why. Anyway, to be more specific, the Hellraiser game is being made by Saber Interactive, the developers of Evil Dead the game, whereas the new Halloween game is being developed by IllFonic and published by Gun Interactive, the creators of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game. Now, if you do a little bit of a deep dive, you'll notice that both Ash Williams and Leatherface are both still in Dead by Daylight. So why is it this time these developers are scraping these characters away from DBD when in the past they decided not to? Well, first off, it's important to note that Gunn actually got close to removing Leatherface from DVD back in 2023 before TCM released. There was an entire story where it got confirmed that he was leaving the game, but then behavior acted like it was never actually going to happen, even though they literally removed the names from the perks in the PTB, which led to the cancellation of DVD leaks as unreliable, even though a little while later it actually came out that Leatherface was indeed leaving DBD. So DBD Leaks was telling the truth, but behavior ended up extending the Leatherface contract. And it's really important to note here that Gunn controls the interactive rights to the character Leatherface, which means that it was ultimately their decision to make, despite what a lot of lazy-ass glue sniffers on Twitter claim I made up. Now, did Gunn do this out of good faith to open a bridge to the DVD community between both games, or was it just good business? Probably both, but what is definitely certain is that this good faith was not returned in any way by behavior. Literally any time Gunn released a DLC, or even during the launch of the game, behavior ruthlessly defended their game with BP events, FOMO events, anything they could implement to kill the hype for TCM during important and pivotal moments. Behavior would act wholesome and supportive towards TCM publicly on Twitter, but it was all business on the back end. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend behavior killed TCM. Gunn 100% did that by themselves. They're terrible developers. But regardless, Gunn clearly doesn't see it that way, or at least has some level of animosity towards behavior for what they did. They're an incredibly spiteful company, so it's really par for the course for them. If you ever saw how they talk with their own community during the launch of TCM, you'd realize the type of developer that they are. Now, it's fair to say this might all be a coincidence that Myers and Pinhead got removed from DVD, and it has nothing to do with prior competitive treatment that behavior showed to their ASIM rivals. But it reminds me of an old saying: if it looks like a duck, swims like a duck, and quacks like a duck, then it's probably a duck, right? Now, some people have of course pointed out that this might hurt the upcoming releases of these games, because people will know it's the direct fault of these games that such iconic characters from DVD were permanently removed, right? It's going to leave a little bit of a bad taste in some people's mouths, but logically it's still the smartest move for these companies. Whether we like it or not, these ASIM games make a lot of money when they release, and these devs keep getting the rights to use these licenses. So even if these games don't have a long lifespan, they're still a huge financial success, and by removing the characters, they permanently weaken their biggest competition for the future, Dead by Daylight. If Gunn wants to be really petty, they could still come back and remove Leatherface from DVD next time the contract negotiation begins, and if that ends up being the case, then we would pretty much prove this case as factual. Now, as far as trying to sabotage TCM with all the BP bonuses and FOMO, how do I personally feel about it? Was behavior in the wrong? Did they do the wrong thing? I mean, at the end of the day, I see it as a business decision. They clearly burnt some bridges for what is, in my opinion, some petty gains at potentially the cost of these huge licenses down the road. So I don't think it was really smart to do. And also, as a TCM enjoyer, I was pretty annoyed, honestly, especially with like the FOMO shit on DVD, because there were a lot of times I was on DVD grinding for limited time stuff when I wanted to be enjoying new content on TCM, and I'm sure I wasn't the only one who felt that way. It's exactly the result behavior wanted, and it felt scummy because it was scummy. And they did do the same thing to Evil Dead as well, just to be clear. I also think it's important to think forward with this concept, right? If we lose Halloween and Hellraiser in 2025 alone, then what do they come for next? Gunn is still actively making their own new game entirely. It hasn't even been announced yet. We have no idea what it's going to be, other than the fact that we know it's going to be based on a licensed iconic killer. That's all the information we have. So we could easily see the removal of something like a Nightmare on Elm Street, Child's Play, Saw, Ghostface, etc. I think some are more likely than others, especially if you pay attention to what killers are still getting skins. But then again, Stranger Things added Jonah like right before they announced it was going to be removed from the game. So we don't really know how these cosmetics are negotiated, and things can always seem to change. There's already concern over the 10th anniversary chapter poster leaving out certain licensed killers. Is this a hint of maybe what's to come in the future? I've also heard the theory that, well, the Halloween game is going to fail and then they're going to bring Myers back to DVD, but like, why should they? How does that benefit them? They're better off just keeping Myers out of Dead by Daylight to weaken their competitor, right? Like, why would they put him back in? Anyway, I'm curious what you guys think about this. Are you concerned that more licenses are going to leave? Why do you think the licenses are leaving? Do you think it's just business, or do you think that there's something more to it? Let me know. And as always, thanks so much for watching, and have a good one.